Ruth Hartunian-Ellenbaugh here. Welcome to another episode of Ravings and Cravings on 14 WILI and 95.3 FM. Ravings and Cravings is brought to you by Elm Package Store and Tony's Pizza. Because life and food are always an adventure. That's why I picked that theme song, if you ever wondered. I was like, Indiana Jones, yeah, we're going to go on an adventure from the seat of our radio station studio today. I'm here with Matt Rupar. Thanks, Matt, for your technical support. We are doing a special program today that I'm very excited about. Talking to Scott Dolge, who's president and CEO of the Connecticut Restaurant Association. He is on the line. So if it sounds a little different than usual, we are on the phone. So, hey, Scott, thanks for joining me.
No, thanks so much for having me, Ruth.
This is a very pivotal time as far as activities and things going on this year. And I'm going to let you just carry the ball here and talk about what's coming up literally a week from today, right?
1 week from today, yeah, we have our 7th annual Crazies. It's our awards gala, Crazies. We've had it, why the name the Crazies, CRA obviously, and then VIES. But the event itself was started, since I took over about 7.5 years ago, about a way just to bring the industry together, celebrate everything good about our industry, recognize some of the best, but really, more importantly, to showcase hospitality and all that it is. And as people want to know really more about the name, it's kind of off of Steve Jobs' quote, people that are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do. It's kind of the theme that we launched, and the event has grown from, about 300 people 7 years ago, and now we, working with the fire marshal, we have a little over 1,500, a sellout crowd at Foxwoods a week from today, and going to give out awards like Best Restaurant, Best Chef, Hospitality Hall of Fame, Restaurant Newcomers. We also obviously recognize the entire state, so it's not just about, we make sure whether it's Windham, Talon County, New Haven, New London, Fairfield, we want to make sure that it's the state awards, and we want to recognize all hospitality businesses around the state.
Where did the inspiration come for this idea? And that is exponential growth. I mean, 300 to 1,500, that's pretty crazy.
It is, no pun intended. I love it. It's something for me. So many people don't know. I didn't come from the industry. I actually, worked in college athletics and professional sports. I did a lot of event building and events around the old jobs I had. And for me, when I started in this role, besides trying to learn the advocacy and the legislative challenges that were faced with this industry, also I got I'm from Maryland originally. I've lived in Connecticut for 25 years, but everyone always said to me, oh, well, Connecticut's a pass-through state. When you talk about culinary and chefs, there's not a lot of great restaurants. It's really New York City and Boston. And I took offense to that. I said, what can we do as an association to change hearts and minds and make sure that we are a platform to not only recognize these restaurants on a state level, but we've seen regional and national attention now come. And, not only because of the Crazies, but, when you look at our past Chef of the Year or Restaurants of the Year, you're starting to see James Beard, recognition. We won our first James Beard Chef Award in 17 years for Northeast. So, there's a lot of really good that comes out of it. But also, it's not just the best of the best. It's also, we say every day that every restaurant has a story. And the event allows us to tell those stories, whether it's, first-generation immigrants that are here that open their restaurant, or it's someone that's been in business for 60, 70 years. There's so many incredible stories out there, and this is a platform to really tell it.
I love the backstories personally. I mean, I don't mind eating the food either, but I always like hearing about how did you get here? I mean, I can't tell you how many stories that I've heard of people who say, "Oh, I started dishwashing."
Yeah.
And they've worked themselves up through the ranks, probably without any desire to do that, but just found themselves catapulted into greater and greater responsibilities. And I love those stories, don't you?
I that's one of the best parts about what the Crazies has become. Obviously, the numbers and the scale and the size are incredible, but for me, we haven't changed the programming in the 7 years. We continue to give our winners the microphone and the platform to speak, and those are just raw emotions. No one knows who is winning except for a vet on my team and myself and the award designer out in Vancouver as the only people that know until we announce the winners, kind of like the Oscars or anything like that. And that raw emotion of seeing these people win, but then, they're maybe prepped to speak, but maybe not. And it's just like they're just letting it all out. And those have been some of the best parts of the Crazies for me over the years, is to watch the people on stage. I mean, a couple of years ago, Metcha Noodle Bar, which is a great story with Rich and Tony. They came up on stage and they got Restaurateurs of the Year. But what was incredible is they talked about their upbringing being, first, the second generation with their parents that came here, but they actually brought both their parents up on stage. The parents didn't even know.
Yes.
And they were like, we were told and how we grew up that we had to be doctors or lawyers, and you allowed us to do this, and this award is as much ours as it is yours. And it was like there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd, but it's things like that I look back on. And this year, you don't know. That's what I love. You don't know how these winners, as we kind of get down to the final winners and we announce them, how the reactions are going to be. And every year's always new stories to tell, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I listened to those stories last year, and some of them were so memorable, and I found myself tearing up too. They have all the feels, and I don't know that people prepare speeches, but so many significant things have been said, and I've enjoyed being a part of the process myself. Let's talk about some of. Go ahead. I
was going to say I didn't want to end by not saying, Ruth, you're the success of the Crazies isn't just a couple people or our association. It's even you giving your time, Ruth, and being on our panel the last few years, really representing a part of the state that needs to be represented, and that's what I love about everyone. I remember, I'll say it, 7.5 years ago when I wanted to change the name of the awards to the Crazies. My board was like, what are we doing? We're not crazy. What's this name? And, really trying to instill a vision. And I remember someone saying to me, no one's ever going to want to win a Crazy. I just don't get it. And I was like, listen, we have to build something, and it's going to take everybody about it. But that has now come to fruition where people are like, wait, CRA, but are you guys the Crazies? And that's what's so much fun is we've built something that everyone has been a part of, and you yourself, Ruth, have been a big part of that success and that growth for our state, which we're very thankful for.
Well, I feel very honored to even be a part of the process. The first year that I was invited, I thought, wow, who am I? I mean, what could I, essentially bring to the table? Pun intended, of course. But as I've gone through the years, I don't take each year for granted, and I feel like it's an honor to be on the nominating committee, and I do love my part of the state, and so I hope that is really obvious. That being said, why don't you talk about that big award that the people down the street at Willie Brew have gotten for this year that is already public knowledge? I'm going to let you take the thunder on that one.
Well, no, listen, I think as everyone knows, we have coveted awards that people can vote on, and voting actually just closed over the weekend. And we have those, whether it's best chef, we have service team, bar team, bar and beverage team of the year, restaurant newcomer. But then we also, like I said earlier in the program, is we want to recognize, we have what we call the Hospitality Hall of Fame, where we have restaurants that have been open for 25 plus years as a criteria. But it's not just how long you've been open. It's also the criteria defines that you have to, be a community staple, one that people know you in the state, that you've, what you've given back, all those sides. And listen, there's probably, 1,000 restaurants that probably could have been on this list. Unfortunately, we've actually only had in the lifespan of our awards, which is going back about 20 years. We've had awards before the Crazies. There's only about 35 restaurants, 40. So, as you can imagine, Ruth, so many people are like, well, these needs it. And so that even makes that process harder. But this year, our two Hospitality Hall of Famers, one is Spartan Restaurant and Bar in Waterbury that people maybe know and know well. But also the big one is Willimantic Brewing Company and what, what they mean to that post office and what they decided to do, and create and what they continue to do in that community for Willimantic. And it's just an honor to talk to Dave and hear his story and knowing his story even before we honored him. And then when I'm fortunate to get a chance to make those phone calls, where, he's stressed of the day. He's like, I kind of had a bad weekend. It rained. I dealt with this. I was like, hey, take a second I have some good news to share. And he was blown away. And he was like, Scott, I know there's so many others that are, that should be on this list. And I said, I agree, but so should you. And so should, what you've done. And, it was amazing that so many people, even on the panel or my board or other people that don't live in that part of the state that just know Willie Brew, like, oh my gosh, Willie Brew's not on the list. How is that not? Like what they do, what they've done there, what they continue to do. So that's what I'm excited to see, and the good thing is we announced them early as well as Spartan, because it gives them a chance to, because it is a huge award for them, and they're going to be bringing family, and they've got multiple tables, and, the community, and they're going to celebrate it, because that's really what this is about. Like we worked on a video that I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody, that, we make sure we try to tell that story for the guests in the room, that they get a better sense of, why Willimantic Brewing Company or why Spartan should be selected. And those videos are also iconic as well, because it's like, even for me, I'm like, I didn't know that, or that little part that I think the Go Nation team does a great job of going on site and interviewing people and really trying to pull out the history of these locations and tell that story.
Yeah, I think of Dave, and I think of Willie Brew, and I think of just two words, and they would be humble as well as generous. And he has been 100%. That. He has been that to the community. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's not just about the food, is it? It's the people who are pumping it out.
Well, it's everything. It's why we use the word hospitality. It's people can make great food, but also it's so much more behind it. It's how do you create that memory for folks inside that restaurant, and it could just be your front of house and how they interact with you. It could just be so much of them knowing who you are, and I think the community aspect that Willie Brew has had for so many years. It just touches so many people that even I think I ran into someone that grew up in Connecticut, and they were like, wait, Willie Brew's getting recognized? Like, that's awesome. I used to go there as a kid. Like that, those are what's so much fun that, our event is kind of transcending and continuing to tell stories of the people that are doing incredible things, that maybe open a new restaurant or these upcoming chefs, but then to still have a platform to recognize those that have been doing it for so long, that we like to call like the OGs in our industry that should have that recognition years ago. But obviously our job is now to find ways to do it now and tell their story, which, they're always great nights. I'm looking for it. David's like, wait, I have to talk. I'm like, yep, there's the microphone. It's very bright with the lights. But
can't wait to hear what he's going to say. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, quite an honor. And of course, there are other restaurants in our area, and since we're talking about this area where I'm living in, we have other people who are on the ballot, which is very exciting to me. We have Heirloom Food Company. We have Ani Restaurant, and I haven't made it there yet.
Listen, that's and Ruth, you kind of are part of that when we talked to the panel, where the first couple of years when we did the Crazies, it was like, hey, best restaurant in the state, let's have 5 finalists. And for me, I was like, that's great, but like you really started to see, it was very Harford County driven or New Haven County. And for me, as I grew up in Maryland, like I said before, where we know our counties really well, which is funny in Connecticut, because some people are like, wait, what county is that in? But it's a great divider we have 8 counties in the state. So for us to have, 4 finalists in each of the counties, and someone is going to win the county of the year. But then what we also do, our last award of the night, is the overall winner. So every county winner, so all 8 winners win an award, but then there's someone that'll win the top award, where you have in Wyndham this year, where you have Anya, you have Harp on Church, Heirloom Food Company in Danielson, you have Trigo and Willimantic, not only with Willimantic Brew Company, but what Trigo's been doing. So those 4 will go up for best restaurant in the county. And then whoever wins that in the middle of the program, at the end of the program, will be up for an opportunity to win the overall award, which is just so much fun. Everyone wants to stay around and wants to know, who's going to be picked as the best restaurant in the state for 25. Yeah.
Well, and Woke is kind of the new kid on the block out of all 4 of all four of them. So that makes me very happy. And I also, to me, the part of it is I appreciate the fact that, there's ethnic flavor to many of the people who are on the finalist list. So that makes me happy too.
Well, same to me, Ruth. I think that's the biggest thing for us is, as we do these awards every year, we always know we can make it better, and how do we improve. But, on the diversity side or the ethnic side, or, like we said, we've, even on like the chef side, when I first started, first couple of years, we never had female chefs that were on the list. And now we've had winners with Renee Toupont and Emily Mingrone. And, you have Ashley Flagg this year that's going up for an opportunity for Chef of the Year against a great list of chefs. But, like, that's important to me is, like, making sure that we are, it's not just the American restaurant that's doing, high-end stuff. There's so many other styles, and it does make it difficult to say, well, that's the best or this is the best. But, there's never an easy way to ever do this. But for us, we always feel like we're doing a disservice if we don't explore out and we don't have the panel and we really push people to think of, and how these restaurants should be recognized and who are doing some amazing things. And, even with like our restaurateur of the year with Saul Rodriguez, with Yves Saul and Puerto Vallarta, as people probably even know in this part of the state, like he's got, 8 locations, I think 9 locations around the state, but him growing up in Mexico and coming here with family and opening his first and being Connecticut born. So again, another way that we try to recognize all sides of the industry.
Well, speaking of sides of the industry and other hats that we wear, so I am going to be doing something on Friday, which is a community holiday sing-along at the River Room with the guy who hosts these sing-along and musical and all kinds of events there. And he is here in the studio with me with a restaurant question because, of course, food and, music and the arts, they really do go together. It's a happy marriage. Right. So he wants to ask kind of a technical question. So I'm going to leave him do that right now. This is Chris Beaudry. Chris, this is Scott.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm good, Chris. How you doing?
Good. I just wanted to reintroduce myself. I was actually a Connecticut Restaurant Association member when I was the general manager at the Old Lime Inn restaurant and Jazz Club, the Side Door. And I believe you had just come on, maybe you were a year into your tenure as president of the Connecticut Restaurant Association. And you did a great, just a fantastic informational session at the Flanders Fish Market. I don't know if you remember that one.
I do.
A couple years back. But, it was so informative and the work that the Connecticut Restaurant Association does, when I became a new member, I immediately utilized the pro bono legal consult that you provide to your members. I don't know if you still do that.
We do.
But it was just, it was so invaluable to be able to do that and then also bounce questions off of you and the other, administrative members of the Connecticut Restaurant Association. One of the major points at the Flanders Fish Market was you were talking about your lobbying efforts for the Connecticut's 1% hospitality tax that they assess on dining experiences and whatnot. And I know you were seeking to lobby to get that money back into efforts for tourism and stuff around the state. I think as it stands, 10% of that additional 1% tax at restaurants goes to tourism. Is that still an active endeavor of the Connecticut Restaurant Association to lobby Hartford to use the funds to re-stimulate the economic landscape?
Chris, well, listen, I really appreciate the question. It's great to hear from you. Obviously not seeing you in person, but great to hear from you. But yes, I guess for the listeners to understand, unfortunately, none of that money currently goes to tourism.
General
I'm
fund,
still
right?
lobbying. Yeah, it's still to the general fund. I am lobbying hard. It'll be one of our priorities again this year. I know the governor has announced a run for a third term, and he will be at the Crazies. I will promise you that this will be a topic of discussion, in front of a crowd, because for me, listen, I think for the listeners to understand, we're just the restaurants alone, it's about a $16 billion a year industry and economic impact to the state. And when you add up the hotels, and obviously with the Old Lime and everything else, but you add up the hotels, the restaurants, the sales and use tax back to the state is about $1.5 billion.
Wow.
Just in sales and use tax. So when we had a tourism budget, 2 years ago, that was about $15 million or $12 million. Now it is down to $4.5. The state doesn't see it as a priority, and they continue to say to me, well, where are we going to fund this, Scott? And for the listeners, if you do go out to eat, you might not even notice it, but there is an extra 1% meals and beverage tax on your bottom of your bill, so it's 7.35%, not 6.35, which was added in 2019. That pool of money has generated, well over, I think, almost $500 million back to the general fund in 5 years.
It did about sound like a lot, 1% extra that would make that much revenue.
500 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
500 million, and even last year alone, it did about 117 million, just the 1% going back to the state. So when we are coming back and talking about, hey, a portion of that needs to support the industry that's actually generating it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where I think, we're going to get more involved. We're continuing to ask, the governor, as he runs again, we're going to continue to ask legislative leaders as well as all the reps and the senators around the state that, they need to step up. And we had a plan where if we took all that 1%, our plan was to take 50% of it and give it back to the towns that generated. So it would infuse where towns would want to add more restaurants or add more hotels because that they're going to get a higher percentage back that they can reinvest in their town. And then the other portion would go to tourism, and then another portion would go to workforce on the hospitality side. So we're not giving up on that piece. I just think that, unfortunately in Hartford, there's a lot of other priorities that are always there. I think we unfortunately get put on the back burner way too much, and I think that needs to change. And Chris, we've talked about it. I think that this is a part of when I started the CRA, and where we want to go from here and how important it is that, we have to be loud and talk about how important hospitality is for jobs, 150,000 jobs, for economic impact, 16 billion, all these things that we're doing, people's first job, as you brought up, Ruth, about a dishwasher becoming an owner, like everything this industry stands for, why are we leaving us out? And also the last comment I'll make is for every dollar put into tourism on the $12 million budget, it has a return between $6 and $8 back to the state. Yeah. So I'm like, give me another program where you actually have a return on investment. Not even at 1-to-1. Right. Most don't even have a return. This has a 6 to 8 to 1 return on investment, and why we have a great leader in Anthony, who we're actually recognizing at the Crazies on Monday. The chief marketing officer. He has done incredible work with almost limited to zero resources. In my opinion, the Pizza Capital campaign he did on really a very limited budget has gotten, I want to say, I think like 18 billion media impressions, which is insane. And
that's amazing.
So we will continue, Chris. We'll continue to make sure that hospitality is at the forefront of the mindset of Hartford and the legislators, and hoping we can, because I even think a $15 million budget that was what it was when Dan Malloy was in office. It was $15 million. We haven't been at 15 in more than like 10 years, 12 years now, and we need to probably be at like 20 or 25 million to have a competitive tourism budget to compete with Rhode Island and Massachusetts and our neighboring states. The I Love New York campaign is about 140 million. We're not asking for that, but just to put that in perspective, our budget this year is 4.5. So like $4.5 million is not going to go very far. Unfortunately, it's out of sight, out of mind when we're competing with Newport, Rhode Island, or you're competing with Portland, Maine, or Bar Harbor, all these other areas that are going to drive people away from our state to come visit. And the last thing I mention is, as I preach to the governor and many people all the time, that culinary tourism is real. Yeah. People want to come to these restaurants. They will drive. They will travel. They'll travel to New Haven for pizza. They want to go see these experiences for food, and we need to support it in that way.
And I had an ever so quick follow-up to actually harp on your point there. Firstly, Scott, I just want to say, like, the people that you surround yourself are, I think, critical to your mission in getting all of this great work done and making us on a level competitive playing field with these other regions. But, the grassroots efforts of people like the person you're speaking with here now, Ruth Hartunian Allenbaugh. This show, Ravings and Cravings, I'm not sure if you're too familiar with it, but it is a staple in our region here, and the spotlight that Ruth shines on. I'm speaking from my heart right now, because I'm in the industry and I see how difficult it is for people to make a go of it. But Ruth showcases, everything. I'm talking like mom and pop cottage operations all the way to your full-scale dining. And I do want to throw an invite out to you, Scott. It's less of a question and more of an invitation. I'm on the board of the Willimantic Downtown Neighborhood Association, and we partner up with our neighbor in Mansfield at the Mansfield Downtown Partnership to bring, actually Andy Goot, formerly of Stone Row, kind of led the charge in setting this whole thing up, but we call it Taste 2 Towns. And you can go to taste2towns, the number 2.com, and it's basically a collaboration between Mansfield and Windham, and we get about 20 or so restaurants per town, and it's 2 weeks of just restaurant deals. So there's two levels, and we're trying to draw people from around the region to see what wonderful dining experiences we have to offer here. And I would like to personally invite you within that 2-week span, Scott, if I could get your email from Ruth.
Oh, sure.
After the show is over, I'd love to extend an invitation. So the mayors from each town of Windham and Mansfield actually get together, and they go to a restaurant in each of their their opposite
but if
towns.
If you're not a mayor, you can still come and eat here.
Yeah, no,
we'll let you do that.
We would like to invite you as a dignitary, so to speak. So
I'll share the email.
Yeah, we'd love to get together and have you come and experience this, Scott.
No, I would love to. I think, and that's, as you mentioned, like what Ruth is doing, and obviously I know the show. I haven't had a chance to formally be on it till now, but for me, it's, every way that you can promote hospitality and what's going on. And, people say to me all the time, like, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind to people. But if there's ways to have a platform and tell these stories, like, even for me, like, I wish I could get out to the 9,300 food service locations around the state. It's physically impossible, but almost every day I get a chance to either hear a story, stop in, see something. And like, even the crazies this year, like when you look at like the Windham County side, like the Anya conversation, or even Heirloom and talking to the owner there, and like why they started there. Obviously Harp on Church, everyone loves, Trigo has their kind of huge following and got into the pizza trail, but like all of them have different sides, but like a lot of them don't even know us. And I'm like, hey, I'm excited for them to come to the event and see that. But there's so many others that, if we could continue to drive that home, I think that, it means so much for our entire state to know that this part of the state on the east side of the state, that if you haven't been, you haven't had a chance to experience some of these great locations in the same way you talked about, Chris, with the Old Lime Inn. Like there's so many just great inns and places to stay and bed and breakfasts that people don't even, they're like, wait, I didn't know that was in Connecticut, or oh my gosh, that's where so like that's for us what we're trying to accomplish every day. And I think that there's still so much more work to be done, but Ruth is doing a great job, and I'd be happy to, if I can, as long as I'm not in DC or having to travel around too far, I'd love to come down and take part in the Taste of Town.
We got a 2-week window, so I'm going to send that invite to you.
And that's why I exist, is to bring the best to the table. And Scott, you've been part of that best. Thanks, Chris, for your input. Thank you, Matt, for your tech support. This is Ruth Hartunian Alaba, otherwise known as Ravings and Cravings. I'm signing off here on Good Company, WILI.